basis.
Absolutely, Dr. Mercola. Can you do me a favor? Can you turn your external mic down? I think your output's up a little high. Can you turn that down for me just a bit? Thank you, Doctor.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Again, Dr. Mercola, Mercola.com is our guest here today. And, of course, so we carry a lot of his information at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com as well. Dr. Mercola, let me ask you this question. Where do you think we are in the fight? Do you concur with what I said earlier in that 3-minute intro, or what can you add to that?
I think we're making clear progress. I'm just adjusting my settings. Is that better?
That's a lot better. Thank you.
Okay. So we're making clear progress. There's a long road to hoe for sure, but there's more and more people who are being aware. On our site alone, we've had a 50% growth in visitors to our site, and last year we had 80 million unique visitors. So that we're getting the word out in the education component, there's no question. But when people come to our site, the challenge is that we give them these stories like the ones you just referenced, but it's difficult to integrate that all together to a foundational strategy to take that information and to integrate it into a plan that you can use to change your health, which is why I wrote a new New York Times bestseller called Effortless Healing that's compiled this in a simple, easy to understand, practical plan.
That's right. So it's one thing to just talk about the victories we've had. What about going to the mass of people? And that's the reason you're on today. I forgot to mention it. EffortlessHealing.com, the new book about how you can quickly, easily change your life.
Yes, by applying this information that's out there and easy to do. And I can give you a few examples. This is not necessarily information that people know about. And one of the surprising ones in there is that sitting is the new smoking, and that sitting more than 3 to 8 hours a day, like many of us do, can radically increase your risk for diseases like lung cancer. So it's just a simple strategy that you can intervene. There's more than 10,000 studies that show that this is a clear thing. That's why I'm standing now when I'm talking to you. But just simply sitting down will increase and rapidly accelerate your development of so many chronic diseases.
And by the way, we're trying to go in that direction now, where I have the crew on the radio TV studio rotate Alex, to where most of them are standing, and they actually like it more. It was their idea a few years ago when we built the new studio to do this, and I'm even looking at, for part of the show, in fact I did it some last week, to doing part of the show standing.
Yeah, well, kudos to you, because I've interviewed Dr. Levine, who is a researcher at Mayo Clinic, and he's a consultant for many Fortune 500 companies. And when they integrate this plan, they notice that not only do people, the employees of these businesses feel better, their productivity goes up and their profit level of the corporation goes up. So it's a win-win-win all the way around. It just doesn't really cost much except to maybe make the conversion to a stand-up desk.
Well, that's why in the military, in the command centers, especially on ships, you stand up for most of your watch, because they found sitting down, you turn into a vegetable.
Yeah, it's something that, it's not intuitive, because many of us understand, appreciate the importance of exercise. And in the book, I go into the differences between regular exercise that most people do, which is the traditional cardio aerobics, and the benefit of actually exercising in a more concentrated form in something that's called high intensity exercises, that you can cut your exercise time down by 80% or so and receive even more benefits. So simple changes that don't necessarily cost you anything, in fact, save you time, effort, and money.
Well, I can't wait to read your book. Give us some of the amazing tricks that folks don't know about, because, I mean, I just learned in the last few years about the standing thing, and I've also just learned about the high-intensity workouts that are a lot quicker but more productive. What else is in there?
There's so much information, but only highlight on ones that goes off of some of the articles that you just reviewed. One is the importance of our second brain and the connection to our primary brain. So you're saying, well, what is that connection? Well, one of my big passions is to help eliminate the genetically modified foods in this country. Why? Because most of those foods are loaded with glyphosate. It's a poison. It's an herbicide that's sprayed, and to the tune of nearly 1 billion pounds every year worldwide. And the average person is consuming about 200 pounds of this food a year. So, and you say, so what? Well, this chemical has been shown to be and proven to be a very potent bactericide. In other words, it kills many bacteria. So what? Well, it turns out we have 100 trillion bacteria that mostly reside in our gut. And when you selectively destroy a large numbers of these beneficial bacteria, you also decrease these bacteria's ability to produce nutrients. Like there are certain, there's 20 amino acids, and a certain percentage of those are what we call essential amino acids, meaning our body can't make them. We rely on these bacteria to make them. And there's 3 aromatic amino acids. One is phenylalanine, the other is tyrosine, and the other is serotonin. I'm sure many of you, your listeners, have heard of serotonin. In fact, 90% of the serotonin that's made in your gut your body makes is made in your gut and not in your brain.
Wow.
So serotonin is a potent neurotransmitter, but it's also a precursor for another neurohormone called IGF-1, insulin glucose factor.
So we have these factories of different bacteria that are in our gut. All this pesticide and garbage, herbicide, pesticide is in there killing them. And then I know from reading your literature and others.
We're eating it.
Pardon me?
Most of us are eating it.
Absolutely.
It's not because it's not labeled, they're not aware, and it's in almost every processed food that they can purchase.
Wow. And then is it true that then bad bacteria kind of replace them in that food chain in your gut?
There's nature abhors a void. So if you kill the beneficial bacteria, it's filled with the pathogenic disease-causing fungi, yeast, and viruses.
Wow, please continue. This is incredible.
Yeah, so now with the serotonin, so you radically decrease your serotonin. So what is serotonin? What does your body use serotonin to convert it into? Tryptophan. Tryptophan is also an important component in serotonin for making melatonin. And melatonin not only decreases cancer, but it also is an important hormonal regulator that helps with our sleep. So there's enormous consequences. And the serotonin is this neurochemical that helps decrease the risk of anxiety and depression. And 1 out of 4 of your listeners from 40 to 50 women are probably taking antidepressants or anti-anxiety agents. It's crazy. I mean, it's in epidemic proportions. So these are the things that I review in the book that help people understand these and simple strategies that you can use to avoid these toxic influences. And you're right. And ultimately, it involves this collective effort where we understand what those choices are. We go to the grocery store and we vote with our pocketbook. And because we limit their ability to sell these items, then we decrease their purchase. And we are making progress. One of the articles that you briefly alluded to, I don't know if you had it on previous shows, but I believe last week the World Health Organization classified glyphosate as a class 2A carcinogen, which is a major strategy and a huge...
That's right. They classified it. Then Reuters and AP said, whitewashed it and said the UN says it may be a carcinogen. No, they said it's a carcinogen.
Yeah, it is. And as they did, the World Health Organization did a few years earlier and said the same thing about cell phone radiation, was class 2B. So these are pernicious influences that we all have an opportunity to relatively easily avoid. And that is, it's a simple strategy, and it's a win-win-win when people understand this and take their initiative to ideally grow your own food. And so what can you do as an alternative? Well, ideally, locally grown organic vegetables. But one of the simple strategies that I advocate is growing your own food as sprouts. Now, typically, many of us have tried growing sprouts, but we've done it in glass ball jars. But if you actually soak them for about 8 hours and then rinse them for another 12 to 24, and then plant them in a potting tray about 12 inches. Literally, from time that seed to about 10 days, you can harvest sunflower seed sprouts that would cost you $7 a pound if you purchased them in the health food store, but you can grow them for like 10 cents a pound. And these sprouts, they're 30 times more nutrient dense than organic vegetables you can grow in your backyard.
So this is literally a college education book on everything you've learned condensed in to really teach people things they can do to change their lives very quickly. I haven't read the book yet, but I know it's gotten amazing reviews. What about SSRIs, since you mentioned those? Paul Watson wrote back on Thursday, guessing that the kamikaze pilot over in Europe that crashed in France was probably on SSRIs, what I've dubbed suicide mass murder pills, famously on Piers Morgan. Their main sponsor, I guess, was similar, type SSRIs. Watson said that because, look, he was under mental health screening. He wasn't even supposed to really be flying, but didn't let him know about it. And then here he was, it turns out, New York Times by Sunday admitted, okay, he really was on SSRIs. What a shocker. Dr. Mercola, I mean, from your research, why? I mean, we even forced, as you know, the inserts in the last 10 years to admit it causes an increase in this. This is not deniable. What's going on with these?
Well, it's the strategy that these companies use. There are many people, tens of billions of people who are legitimately depressed through a whole variety of reasons. One of them is including eating GMO foods. But there's a lot of obviously external variables that cause depression. So there is a need for some solution. But Alex, you know what the S in SSRI stands for, right? Alex?
I'm sorry, Dr. Mercola.
The S in SSRI, you know what the S stands for?
No, I don't.
It stands for serotonin.
Oh, of course, yes. Serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Oh, sure, I know what it stands for. Yeah, I thought it was like a joke or something.
No, it's not a joke.
No, I thought you were going to say Satan or something. No, of course, it's a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Yeah,
the glyphosate actually selectively kills the bacteria that make serotonin. 90% of the serotonin is produced in our gut, not in our brain. So why the heck would anyone who's rational choose to take a pill to do this when they can just merely avoid GMO foods and radically increase the amount of serotonin their body's producing to supply this important neurotransmitter and neuroregulator in our body. So there's simple strategies that you don't,
Well, you eat food, the little bacteria have a meal as well. You then feel calm and happy, kind of get high off of it, but it's the normal healthy serotonin, not a chemical doing it in your brain artificially.
Yes, and I just want to emphasize one thing too, because the big part of the book is designed to help instruct people how to improve and encourage the growth of this microbiome, and there's lots of conventional science that now supports this. So it's probably one of the single most important things you can do is avoid the use of sugars and processed foods, which will tend to decimate, just like GMO, largely because they're typically contaminated with glyphosate, but avoid the processed foods and other industrial chemicals, and always avoid the sugar, because it's like trying to stop your car with your foot on the accelerator and the gas pedal at the same time. It's really hard to do. You got to take your foot off the gas in this case being the sugar, which fertilizes the pathogenic disease-causing bacteria, virus, and fungi. So no sugar, and then you can use inoculate your bacterial microbiome with beneficial bacteria like fermented vegetables. And we teach you how to make them in the book. It's simple and easy to do. We even have videos instructing people how to do that. And you could, again, go to the health food store and pay $20, $30 a quart for these, or you can make them for yourself for pennies. So it's, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. There's a lot of arguments that people say, well, it's so expensive to eat organic and eat healthy. Well, not necessarily if you know what you're doing.
Well, plus you're going to end up having you're going to have so many health problems. You're going to be so depressed eating bioaccumulated toxins and GMO foods carry, because folks don't understand. The GMO foods almost exclusively are meant to go with the pesticides and the glyphosates, so they're the ones that have the chemicals.
That's right.
Past the debate of what else they're doing.
Into believing it's supposed to be better fertility, soil drought resistance, and improved nutrition, but that is absolute nonsense. 85% of those crops are designed for one thing only, which is resistance to that herbicide glyphosate.
Well, I've talked to a lot of police officers and EMTs in Texas, and they told me one case in Houston, they pull up at the house, this beautiful trophy wife is up on the roof with a butcher knife cutting herself, and, had the kids locked up downstairs, and the cops knew immediately, because she had no history of mental illness, that they would find serotonin inhibitors in her house. Sure enough, they did. It's every case. They say when they find somebody without a criminal record who's never been in trouble and is an adult and suddenly goes crazy, they're always on these drugs. Always. It is almost every mass shooter has been on them. And we were just showing the CNN headline where they were like, it was found in his apartment. Antidepressants found in co-pilot's apartment. So the good news is, used to they try to hide this. Now they have to admit that it is linked to things over and over again. 10 years ago, if Infowars.com pointed this out, like we did days before CNN, we would be laughed at. Now people aren't laughing. That shows we've come a long way, Dr. Mercola.
We're making a major difference, and thank you for all your efforts. It's so greatly appreciated, Alex.
Oh, no. I'm just saying we're all having an effect. Listeners need to know the power they have with taking Mercola.com info, Infowars.com information, your new book, reading it, giving it to friends and family. This is how we're going to change the world.
That's right. And, you mentioned the SSRIs, and they are clearly a pernicious drug that in almost every single case there's a better alternative. But another broad class that's even more widely used are these statin drugs to lower cholesterol, which is an insane process.
Let's talk statins, Dr. Mercola. When we come back from this break, Dr. Joseph Mercola, Mercola.com, EffortlessHealing.com is the site all about the new book that I'm going to read. Stay with us.
We're on the march.